Hi guys, it's Renee and welcome back to my channel, and today we are doing the read along for ErHa. We're on read along 7, and yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know why, I feel a little bit scatterbrained today, so just kind of bear with me. I might make a few mistakes, and I am still a little bit sick, so my voice should hold up. If it could hold up when I was feeling the way I was feeling last week, then it should be fine, but it might be a bit husky at points. Hopefully that'll just add to the read along experience. I don't know. Anyway, hi everyone. How are you? Are you doing good? Has the week been okay? Mine's been a bit hectic, but I'm really excited for next week. I have some things that are happening in my personal life that I'm very excited and nervous for. But yeah, I hope everyone is doing okay. So I just want to see what is going on here with the analytics. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on. It seems like YouTube has slightly changed the way the live looks from my side, which is interesting. But we're just gonna go with it. Hello. Okay, so I am gonna give it like 5-ish minutes before we get into it, just in case there are any people who like still want to hop on. And yeah, I think that's more or less it. Let me see so long where we're at. I think we were near-ish to page 200. Yeah, okay, so for anyone who wants to read along, we are on page 214, and the chapter title is Chapter 20, This Venerable One Will Tell You a Story, Part 2. So I just want to quickly recap, because I can't quite remember where we were at when we left off. Oh, right, we were with the creepy person who, like, was force-feeding the child mandarins or something. I can't remember what you call it in English, sorry. But yeah, the fruits, that's great. It's wonderful. We really stand child abuse in this house, apparently. Please don't take that out of context. Okay. Yeah, I think, how many minutes do you guys think we should give them? Because I'm kind of hyped to get into it, but also really kind of nervous. Also, okay, while we're waiting, let me quickly mention that there's a very good chance that I am going to be scheduling tomorrow's live earlier, because I need to be somewhere around 7 o'clock. So obviously I can't be finishing the live at 7 o'clock my time. So I'm thinking probably I'm just gonna make it like an hour earlier, so an hour before today's live starts, we're gonna do tomorrow's, if that makes sense. It's just 1 hour earlier, but yeah, okay, I think we can more or less get into it. Also, just let me know, is the audio okay? Should be fine, but it's always good to get reassurance with that. Okay. Also, I see my moderator is not currently in the chat. Is there any of you maybe willing to just like take on the moderation role for today's live? I don't. Thank you. I'm glad to hear the audio is great, or good. But yeah, if anyone is maybe willing for me to just put them as a moderator, just to kind of make sure that there's no accidental spoilers in the chat. I know, like, when you're chatting and you're excited, it's very easy to accidentally spoil something. I have done that myself and then quickly deleted it in other people's chats. So yeah, anyway, okay, let us get started. Oh, I need a pillow. Hold on. I need something to put my book on. Okay. The next The next morning, the Chim family came back from visiting their relatives, only to see that their tangerine tree had been chopped down, its fruit strewn across the ground. There weren't many families living in the area, and only the Luo family lived close by. When they recalled the way Luo Xianxian had looked gluttonously at the tangerines, they swiftly concluded that the tangerines must have been stolen by that unlucky child, Luo Xianxian. And not only had she stolen them, she'd even jealously chopped down the tree. Yeah, 'cause that makes any sense. The Chim family immediately went to Scholar Luo, full of accusations. Of course, Scholar Luo... wow, this is not a good way to start. Of course, Scholar Luo wasn't about to take this kind of humiliation. He promptly called his daughter over and asked angrily if she had stolen the tangerines. Luo Xianxian cried as she answered she hadn't. Then she was asked if she chopped down the tree. Luo Xianxian continued to answer that she hadn't. Oh goodness, this is the worst bit, because this was what I was afraid of, because if they ask her did she eat, then she would be forced to say yes, even though technically she was force-fed it, so it's not her fault. Hi. And then she was asked if she'd sneakily eaten any of the tangerines. Before she even had time to explain, her father flew into a mortified rage and ordered her to kneel. He disciplined her with a ruler in front of the Chim family, and as he beat her, he said, "Daughters are truly worthless. You're so young, yet you're already a little thief. Shame on you. You're an embarrassment. No food for you today. Face the wall and repent for 3 days." "Papa, it wasn't me. It really wasn't me." "Don't you dare talk back to me." Nobody believed her. Although the chaos reigned in the lower cultivation realm, Butterfly Town was an exception. The residents of this town lived simple and honest lives. Nobody even locked their doors at night. South Africa could never. And she claimed that a lunatic covered in blood had turned up in the middle of the night. Who could believe that? The skin on Luo Xianxian's hands were left raw and bleeding from all the ruler's strikes. The Chim family watched on unsympathetically. Only the oldest boy differed. He tugged on the corner of his mother's clothing, as if he wanted to say something, but his mother paid him no attention. Left with no choice, he furrowed his rather comically little face and stood off to the side, unwilling to continue watching. That night, Luo Xianxian was too afraid to return inside, and she crouched under the roof of her house to miserably carry out her punishment. Her father, being a scholar... Oh, sorry, the sentence didn't make sense to me. Her father, being a scholar, theft was something he could not abide. On top of that, he tended to dwell on things and was nothing if not stubborn. There was no point in talking to him, as he would refuse to listen to reason. After a day of starvation, Luo Xianxian was beginning to feel faint. Out of nowhere, a voice called out softly to her, "Luo Meimei." Luo Xianxian turned around and noticed a head with oh, I read comically, it's comely. My bad. Comely facial features sticking up out over the earthen wall. It was the boy who had tried to plead for her earlier, the eldest son of the Chen household, Chen Bohuan. Chen Bohuan looked around, and after making sure no one could see him, he climbed over the earthen wall. He took a hot mantua from within his robes and stuffed it into Luo Xianxian's hand without any explanation. "I saw you standing by the foot of this wall for an entire day with nothing to eat. This mantua for you. Go ahead and eat it." Luo Xianxian was shy by nature. Though she had lived in this house for quite a few months, she had barely exchanged any words with the Gurgur next door. Now she looked at him up close, and she couldn't help but back away a couple of steps, hitting her head against the wall with a thud. "I can't take it," she stammered. "Papa won't let me. He said—" She stuttered incoherently for a while, unable to explain herself. "Ah, yeah, your father yammers on about sayings all day," said Chimbohorn. "Don't mind him too much. Starving like this is bad for you. Eat up, before it gets cold." I wanna like him, cause this is like a really nice thing to do, or like just a very decent thing to do, but the way things are playing out right now, it tells me that maybe this is not gonna last. The mantua was white and tender, soft and fluffy, still hot enough to steam. Luo Shen lowered her head and stared at it for a moment, and she swallowed her saliva with a gulp. However, she really was beyond famished, thinking now nothing of gentlemanly behavior this and gentlemanly behavior that. She grabbed the mantua and stuffed it into her mouth. In no time at all, it was gone. After she finished, she looked up with her round eyes. The first full sentence she said to Chen Bohun was, "I didn't chop down the tangerine tree, and I didn't want to steal anything." Chen Bohun was taken aback for a moment. Then he slowly started to smile. But none of them believed me." Under his non-judgmental gaze, Luo Shen gradually began to open up. Her grievances, like ice and snow melting, began to pour out. She opened her mouth and let out a wail, and she sobbed as she wiped away her tears. "None of them believed me. I didn't steal anything. I didn't steal." Can you imagine? Okay, like just taking it back for a moment. Can you imagine experiencing something as traumatic as she went through, and not only does no one believe her or like listen to her, she's punished for what she endured because they don't believe her. Honestly. Chimbohon patted her frantically. "I know you didn't. Aya, you stood under that tree every day, never taking a single tangerine. If you wanted to steal one, you would have done it a long time ago. Why is this child more sensible than adults?" "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." Luo Chen wailed even harder, tears and snot trickling down her face. Chimbo Huan continued to pat her. "It wasn't you. It wasn't you." And just like that, the two of them began to grow close. Later, a murder occurred in a neighboring village. Rumor had it that one night a blood-soaked bandit broke into a house and demanded he be given a room to stay the night. The man of the house refused, and so the bandit killed the entire family. Then he'd casually slept through the night in the corpse-filled room, not leaving until the next day. But before leaving, he used the blood to write a long rant on the walls, documenting all the wonderful deeds he'd done, as if he was afraid that the world wouldn't remember the existence of such a fiend. Yeah, that man is very, very, very creepy. The news spread like wildfire and soon reached Butterfly Town. After comparing the dates, it became clear that this had happened on the exact night that Luo Shenxian had met that lunatic dagger. Scholar Luo and the Chim family were all left speechless. With the misunderstanding resolved, the two families grew closer as well, but they did not apologize to Luo Shenxian. That wasn't in the book. I added that because they seem like the type of people who would be too proud to, or even too inconsiderate, to think they needed to apologize to a child. The Chim family couple realized Luo Shenxian wasn't just cute with the makings of beauty, she was also hardworking and sensible. Considering their own family circumstance, it would probably be difficult to find a better daughter-in-law, and thus they arranged for an engagement between Chen Bohuan and Luo Shenxian. Once the two were of age, they would they would have a formal oh my word, sorry. Once the two were of age, they would have a formal ceremony. Scholar Luo thought his daughter and Chen Bohun were a pretty good match, and thus he happily agreed. Time passed, day by day. If Scholar Luo hadn't had an interest in elegant things and liked to dabble in perfumery, perhaps the two families would have lived out the modest but content life they had initially imagined for themselves. If there was anyone to blame, it was Scholar Luo for creating, even if accidentally, the 100-fragrance butterfly. Yes, sure, go ahead and blame a man for being murdered. That seems legit. The fragrance's scent was nothing special, being not particularly different from the ones commonly found in town. But it had a benefit that the other fragrances didn't. The scent lasted for 100 days, lingering endlessly. That's intense. Because 100 butterfly fragrance held its scent for an exceptionally long time, it was exactly the type of high quality yet inexpensive product that every household sought. Even so, Scholar Luo believed in the saying, "Everything is inferior, only knowledge is superior." He had created the fragrance, but he was unwilling to sell it, believing this would be beneath his dignity. Okay, that's an interesting viewpoint. However, although he didn't intend to sell it, of course, someone else had their mind set on doing so. Madame Chen tried to obtain the formula from Scholar Luo and encouraged him to open a store, only to be rejected. After a few attempts, Madame Chen didn't want to keep making a fool of herself, so she no longer brought it up. Nevertheless, deep down in her heart, she continued to keep it in her thoughts. The year that Luo Shenxian turned 15, an opportunity arose. Scholar Luo had always been sickly, and he contracted tuberculosis. After a few days of suffering, he passed away. As Luo Shenxian's mother-in-law, even though she was Chen Bohan hadn't officially married yet, the sentiments were as such. Madame Chen helped arrange the funeral, busying herself back and forth. Luo Shenxian was moved to tears. However, she didn't realize that Madame Chen harbored hidden intentions. While the madam organized Scholar Luo's belongings, she quietly swiped the formula for the perfume. Of course she did. Okay. That night, Madame Chen lit an oil lantern, full of excitement and ready to read the formula. After only one glance, she was left dumbfounded. Scholar Luo's writing was like a dance between a dragon and a phoenix. The characters were written in an elegant, confident, cursive script. Even after staring at the formula for half a day, she couldn't understand a single word. Left without any choice, she could only quietly return it to its rightful place. After a few months, when Luo Shenxian was less distraught, Madame Chen invited the girl over for a meal. During their casual chatter, she unintentionally brought up the 100 butterfly fragrance. Luo Shenxian thought to herself, "The formula has no use if it's just tucked away in the house. Madame Chen has always been kind to me. If she wants it, I can give it to her." This poor girl. Thus, she retrieved it from her father's possessions, and even helped Madame Chen interpret the writing. Little by little, Luo Shenxian worked out the complex formula. Madame Chen was over the moon. Once she obtained the formula, she and her husband began to plan to open a fragrance powder shop. Of course, at the time, Madame Chen still treasured her kindly, sensible future daughter-in-law. The older Luo Shenxian got, the prettier she became. Even though her family had met misfortune, her appearance was 1 in 100. Quite a few young men in the town had begun to notice her. Oh goodness, why do I mean, we know it's not gonna end well because she's a ghost, so obviously she didn't survive, but it feels so wrong because she has really done nothing wrong in all this, and it seems like she's gonna meet a tragic ending because someone's jealous or doesn't need her anymore, quote unquote. Okay. The longer we let things drag on, the higher the chance of complications arising. Madame Chen thought to herself. They needed to take care of the matter as quickly as possible. However, Luo Xinxian had just lost her father. According to the traditions of Butterfly Town, if one's parents were to pass, one could not wed for the following 3 years. Damn. Okay. I mean, she was 15 at the time, so she would only need to wait until she was 18, which is a reasonable age in modern times. It's actually a bit early in modern times, but it's fair. But obviously this is not going to be good enough. Okay. But how could Madame Chen afford to wait 3 years? She thought it through and came up with a solution. One day, Luo Xinxian was braiding the hair of the Chen family's youngest daughter. She had a close friendship with this girl. Every day it was Luo Jijie this and Luo Jijie that. The girl followed her around like a little tail. Madame Luo stepped into the courtyard. Okay, I said Madame Luo because that's what's written there, but I'm assuming that it was a typo and it's supposed to be Madame Chen. Stepped into the courtyard and called Luo Xinxian into the inner hall. Chen, you and Bo Huan are childhood sweethearts, and you're also engaged, she said. Now that your father has passed, you're all alone, and your life has been quite difficult. You were supposed to marry into our family this year, but the 3-year rule must be respected, and now you can't even marry. I was thinking, how old are you going to be in 3 years? Luo Xinxian lowered her head and didn't say anything, but she was clever and could guess that Madame Chen was about to say next. Her cheeks began to turn pink. Sure enough, Madame Chen continued. Living alone is difficult and tiring. Why not marry into our family now instead? We can conduct the ceremony behind closed doors to keep it quiet from outsiders. If anyone asks, you can tell them that you're staying with me and I'm taking care of you. This way you can get married without inviting outside scrutiny and criticism. Your departed father will be at ease as well. Once the 3 years pass, we'll have a proper ceremony in style. Is that all right? Her words all sounded like they were in Luo Xinxian's best interest. Luo Xinxian was someone who had no bad intentions and would therefore never imagine others did. Naturally agreed. That's so sad, because it's so true. Oh my word. Later, though the sales of 100 butterfly fragrance, the Chen family became wealthy. They moved out of their old home and purchased a large piece of land in town. After much building and renovation, they became a large, influential family. Thus, Luo Xinxian lived a rarely seen existence, obscured in the shadows of this great clan. Everybody in town genuinely thought the reason that Luo Xinxian lived with them was because Madame Chen had been kind enough to look after her. No one knew that she was actually married to Chen Buohuan. Although a little unhappy with the state of things, Luo Xinxian only thought her mother-in-law had arranged things like this to avoid rumors, and that it was all for her own sake, so she didn't have any complaints. However, Chen Buohuan treated her with sincerity, and the time they spent together was sweet and loving. They were only waiting for the 3 years to pass, at which point everything would go back to the way it was supposed to be. That's so sad though, because, I'm glad to hear that he treated her with sincerity at least, because if he started to not like her, then that would have made her life a living hell. But at least it sounds like he was good to her. But the day of the official marriage ceremony, the day that Luo Xinxian was waiting for, never came. The Chen family business was flourishing, and Chen Bohuan was quite handsome. Soon enough, it wasn't just the girls in Butterfly Town who noticed him. Even the daughters of rich families in the neighboring villages started eyeing the eldest Chen Gongzi. Bit by bit, Madame Chen's heart began to waver. When she'd arranged the engagement between the children years ago, it had been because they were simple farmers and weren't going to find anyone better, and so she had hurriedly laid claim to Luo Shenxian. Who could have anticipated this reversal in fortune? That the Chen family would one day be so wildly successful? When she looked at Luo Shenxian now, she felt that the girl was not elegant or clever enough, that she was dumb and dull, just like her damn dried tree root of an old man. Oh yeah, that man whose fragrance was so dumb and dull that you made a fortune of it. Yeah, that one. Yes, sure. The more she looked, the more irritated she found. Why am I struggling so much today? I'm so sorry, guys. The more she looked, the more irritating she found the girl. She regretted it a little. Then the appearance of young Mistress Yao turned this a little into completely. Young Mistress Yao was the governor's pampered daughter, who was tomboyish and had a preference for martial attire. One day she returned from the hunt atop a fine horse, and she passed a fragrance shop where she stopped to look. But rather than picking out any fragrances, she instead picked out the handsome and hard-working young man inside the store. That young man was none other than Chen Bohuan, Luo Shenxian's husband in all but name. This is so sad. Oh my word. Okay, that's the end of the chapter, so let me just grab a little bit more to drink. But I think I'm going a little bit slowly today. I'm really sorry. Okay. For some reason, I feel like my voice is struggling more than it did last week. Oops. Chapter 21. This Venerable One will tell you a story. Part 3. Young Mistress Yao had a spirited personality. Once home, she cared for neither food nor drink, and instead she spent her time pestering her papa to go ask around about this Chen Bohuan person. Although Chen Bohuan was already married, the ceremony had been conducted behind closed doors. Who outside the family could have known? The townspeople hadn't even heard of the arranged betrothal between Luo and Chen families all those years ago, and so it was that the young Mistress Yao was informed that this Chen Gongzi was unmarried. Okay, and this Chen Gongzi is not gonna correct her or stave off the approach that she's probably about to make. I don't know. The governor spared no efforts in looking into this person, and in the end he decided that this young man Chen was a capable fellow with a gentle personality and a Is this just gonna be the entire read along? I'm so sorry. I'm so glad it's not just me. I just realized I'm clenching my teeth in the injustice. Yeah. I feel so bad for this ghost girl. Like, she really just does not deserve this at all. And she's not even, like, there's nothing to dislike about her. She's done everything for this family. and this is how they're going to treat her. Okay. With a gentle personality and a satisfactory family. As such, he sent a messenger to the Chins with a marriage proposal. On receiving this, Landlord Chen was full of regret that his intestines nearly turned blue. They politely told the governor's messenger that they needed some time to think over it, which was their first mistake. That's me, that's not the book. Closed the door and immediately started arguing with each other. "Look where your rushing has led us," said Landlord Chen. "That broke scholar died a year early, and his daughter should have stayed in mourning for 3 years. If you hadn't urged them to get married ahead of time, our son could have gotten out of the engagement. Look at this mess now. Yeah, look at what you did. Like, look at the richness that we got from this woman, and we are ready to toss her aside." Sorry, that's me again. I should stop projecting onto this book. Madam Chen was just as anxious. "Oh, so you're blaming me? Weren't you the one who wanted to arrange the betrothal back then? This isn't the governor's precious daughter we're talking about here. How could that Shen, that Luo Shen, even hope to compare?" The pair of old bastards argued behind closed doors till they were red in the face. Out of steam and their energy spent, they were left staring across the table at each other. "What should we do?" asked Landlord Chen. "Maybe we should turn the governor down." "Absolutely not," said Madam Chen. "Our family is counting on this precious mistress for fame and fortune." "Hi. You came at a very, very pleasant time. Do you really think young Mistress Yao would be willing to be a concubine?" Landlord Chen shot back angrily. "Do you? Our son already has someone. How are we going to squeeze in another? And besides, look at how in love they are." Madam Chen was quiet for a while, then her eyes lit up. "Say, old Chen," she murmured, "the way I see it, no one outside our family even knows about this thing between Luo Shen and our son." There was silence for a moment while Landlord Chen stared blankly before he suddenly understood his wife's meaning. He quivered a little, half from apprehension, half from excitement. "You mean, if no one knows about the marriage, then it never happened?" Madam Chen said, "We'll chase her out, one way or another. If asking nicely doesn't work, then we'll just use force. Everyone thinks our son is yet unmarried. And do you remember that incident from when she was younger, where she stole the tangerines? As long as all of us stick to the story, even if she grows extra mouths to cry about it, who would believe her? Bye. Mifiele?" I know, I hoped... hopped in and felt the rage. Bye, Mifiele. Sorry. Sorry about that. Landlord Chen strode to the door to make sure it was closed tight, then sidled over. A mere moment ago, the two had been arguing like a pair of fighting cocks, but now they were huddled together, scheming in quiet whispers. "I don't think it will work," Landlord Chen said. "Why not?" "Our son will never agree to it. He's liked Luo Shen ever since he was little, and now you want him to just up and ditch her? Do you really think he'll go along with that?" Madam Chen thought for a while, then patted her husband's hand. "Don't you worry. I'll take care of it." This is sounding like she's about to plan this girl's murder, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling here. Okay. Before long, Madame Chen suddenly came down with a grave illness. It was a strange illness. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with her, but she spent every day raving, muttering nonsense, swearing that she was being possessed by a ghost. Worried sick, landlord Chen invited a cultivator to see her. This cultivator had a horsetail whisk and an ethereal air. He punched his ring finger and thumb together and divined that someone in the Chen family meant ill towards Madame Chen. Left unresolved, she would not live to see the next year. Wow, okay. Chen Bo-hwan was very filial, and he anxiously asked, "Who bears ill will towards my mother?" The priest walked around for quite a while in enigmatic pretension before saying it was a beauty who has never seen the sun. Everyone in the room was shocked. One by one, the Chen brothers turned to stare at Luo Shen. Luo Shen was just as shocked. Ever since she was little, others had always said certain things about her, that she was unlucky, that she had brought misfortune on all those around her, and that she had killed her mother at birth, then her brother, and then her father. Now fingers were pointing at her, saying that she was going to kill her mother-in-law. The worst part is she actually has brought fortune onto the Chen family because she shared the fragrance with them. If she hadn't been able to interpret her father's reading, then she wouldn't have they wouldn't have been able to make money off of it. So technically she brings fortune to people, and yet they do this to her. In their distress, the Chen brothers took turns talking to Liu Xinxian. They asked her to leave, saying that no one outside their home knew that she was married, and thus her reputation was still intact. They would give her some money, and she could go find another family. Liu Xinxian was anxious and frightened, and afraid that she really was the one cursing Madame Chen. She cried day after day. This is actually really upsetting to read. Chen Bo-hwan's heart ached. Watching his mother grow weaker by the hour, he was stuck between two, not wanting Shen to leave, but also not wanting his mother to suffer, and this stress caused him to rapidly lose weight. Eventually, the Chen brothers had had enough. One day, while their eldest brother was out, they went to find their sister-in-law. They found Luo Xinxian in the greenhouse, making 100 butterfly fragrance, and rushed in, smashing all her tools. The heavily scented powder covered her all over, its fragrance blanketing her as if it had soaked into her bones, impossible to wash out. At first, the brothers surrounded her and sermonized at length about principles and such, woman's duty this, parents before wife that. But though Luo Xinxian was a timid person, she was also stubborn and resilient in her own way. She cried, saying she didn't want to leave and begging them to please think of another way. The second Chen brother grew agitated. He stepped up and slapped her, saying, I think I know that this word exists, but I don't know how to pronounce it. You harbinger of disaster. You're going to curse our mother to death. If there was another way, would your dad have died? Would your mom? Would your brother be missing? His whereabouts unknown. This is so sad. I can unfortunately believe that it only gets worse. With his one hit, the others took their cue. They rushed in as well and closed in around her with punches and kicks, yelling, "Get the hell out, unlucky pest, and bringer of death." These brothers were one mind with their mother and had been in on her plans since long ago. They jumped on this chance while their eldest brother was out and worked together to drive Luo Xinxian away. threatening to beat her every day if she dared to come back. She had no family anyway, so even if they beat her to death, no one would care to seek justice for her. That night was a snowy one. Shen was tossed out into the cold, her entire body beaten black and blue. One of her shoes had even fallen off. She crawled forward slowly, the choked sobs that made their way out of her mouth sounding like the cries of a dying cub. The night grew deeper and the snow kept falling. Who would leave their homes in weather like that? And so Shen crawled in the endless snow, not knowing where to go, not knowing where she could go. The Chim brothers were right. She had no family, no father, no brother, no one to turn to, no one who would shelter her. This pure white world was vast, but it had no place for her. Her body was frail to start with, and she hadn't been wearing much when she was chased out. As she shivered, her legs and feet quickly became numb and lost all feeling. Hi. We're just having a bit of a crisis right now. Oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing this to her. Yeah. She crawled to the outskirts of town, to the temple of the ghost mistress, and took shelter inside. There she curled into herself, lips blue from the chill, heart cold from sorrow. She looked up at the splendid, painted clay idol, and couldn't help the tears rolling down her cheeks. She thought about the customs of the lower cultivation realm, in which marriage was witnessed by a master of ceremonies, but at her wedding, all she had was a red flower tucked behind her ear when she, smiling, knelt across from Chimbohon and bowed to the ground. Had that ceremony been behind closed doors been no more than a dream? Had the flushing face in the copper mirror that day been a mere reverie born from her dearest longings? Shen knelt before the statue of the ghost mistress, dragging her frozen body that grew heavier by the moment, kowtowing again and again, her tears mixed with laughter, intertwining their hair, new husband and wife, ensure their love shall ne'er be unwound. Joy on this eve. She grew dizzy, vision blurring. It was as if a sheen of moonlight lit up a mirage of that day in the yard when she cried, "That wasn't me, it wasn't me. I didn't steal the tangerines." But repeated rumor became fact, and the gossip was a frightful thing. No one had listened to her side of the story. Even now, she knew that if she were to go crying to the people of the town, even if she were to swear up and down that she was Chimbohan's properly wedded wife, no one would believe her. She was still the little girl that no one would listen to, standing by that low wall. She was no different. Nothing had changed. At least back then, there had been some... At least back then, there had been someone who climbed over the wall and pressed a steamy white mantua into her hand, who had said to her, "You must be hungry. Hurry and eat." Damn it. Sorry, I didn't think I would be crying. I don't know why. I didn't anticipate this as a possibility. Frick. We are reading ErHa. But where was that person now? When he returned and couldn't find her, would he fret? Would he secretly breathe a sigh of relief because she wouldn't curse him his mother anymore? Lu Xinxian curled up in the temple, the tears she shed slowly drying. She whispered, "Mistress of ceremonies, I want to be with him. I'm his wife. There was no one to witness our wedding. You are a ghost, mistress, and you didn't deal with the living. But I can only talk to you." Her last words came out a broken sob. "I didn't lie. I didn't lie." The snow continued falling without a sound in the long, silent night. The next day, some townspeople passing by the temple found Lu Xinxian's ice-cold body. Ooh, hell. Okay, I need to take like a few seconds. If you guys don't mind, I just need to catch my breath. You should consider keeping a box of tissues every time you read the book. Oh hell. Yeah, no, I heard it's gonna be tragic at points. I mean, I feel like we already kind of got a little bit of a taste with the flashbacks to Moran talking about sleeping with Ning, and I distinctly got the sense that it was not. I don't know about consensual, but it wasn't. I don't think it was necessarily a pleasant experience for Ning at that point. Her death is tragic. Poor girl suffered a lot. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I just needed a moment. Sorry, I asked are you guys reading volume 1 that came out on March 4th individually? Oh, okay. Well, I don't think I'm gonna be reading it, but I don't know about people in the comments. Because I'm kind of a little bit scared about the main character. I mean, he was quite intimidating in the Donghua, and I hear he's even more so in the novels. So let me just quickly grab a bit more. I'm so sorry. Okay. Chapter 22. This venerable one, Shizun, is about to get angry. I love that title. I feel like Shizun's about to channel all the readers. I really hope so. Sorry, let me just. After hearing all this, Ning was livid. Thank you, Ning. We are kindred spirits at this point. He wished only to withdraw the willow vine from Lu Xinxian and redirect it with vigor towards the Chen capital. Let's wait for the bird outside my window to sort itself out. Okay. And redirected with vigor towards the Chen couple. But he couldn't open his eyes to curse them out just yet, because the restoration illusion would instantly disappear if he were to do so. A ghost could only be trapped by the restoration barrier once. If he interrupted Lu Xinxian, he would never hear the rest of what she had to say. There's more? Oh, hell. So he could only weather the rage burning within him as he listened to the rest of Lu Xinxian's story. After death, Her numb and disorientated spirit went to the underworld. She remembered only a lady dressed in resplendent colors, who looked quite like the ghost mistress in the temple, standing before her and asking in a soft voice, "You and Chembo-hon could not lay together in life, but do you wish to be buried together in death?" I do, she answered in a panic. Shame, and I didn't think she at that point necessarily realized what she was kind of asking of the ghost mistress, the mistress of ceremonies. I love how everyone is like either reading it or terrified to read it. There's no in between. Oh goodness. Then I will have him come keep you company right away, all right? Luo Shen almost blurted out an eager, unthinking agreement, but she suddenly remembered something and paused. Am I dead? Yes, I am the ghost mistress of ceremonies of the underworld. I can bestow upon you a good match, fulfilling your long-time wish. Then, if he comes to keep me company, will he also die? Luo Shen said in a daze. Yes, but the heavens are compassionate. Life or death is insignificant. Merely a closing of the eyes. What's the difference? There's a lot. There's a lot that I'm not gonna get into right now. Just as expected, Ning thought upon hearing this. This ghost mistress used trickery to lure people into asking it to take the lives of others. What an abominable deity. Although Luo Shen had died a wrongful death, she was not a malicious ghost. She shook her head repeatedly. No, please don't kill him. It wasn't his fault. The ghost mistress gave her a melancholic smile. Such kindness. But what will you get in return? Oh, goodness. However, it didn't try to change her mind. As a deity, coaxing people into making malevolent wishes was fine, but coercion was not. Gradually, its figure faded away and its voice became indistinct. The soul returns on the 7th day, it said. When you visit the living world on that day, go see what the Chim family is up to. Then I will come to you again, to see if you are still without regrets. 7 days later, on the day of return, Luo Shen's spirit regained awareness and visited the world of the living. She followed the familiar road to the Chim manor, eager to see her husband one last time. That is so sad. Like, she wasn't even malicious to start with, but I can bet you that once she sees that her husband isn't even being allowed to mourn her death, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not he would want to, but I don't think that his mother is going to allow him to. I think she's going to change her mind, unfortunately. Oh, goodness. I love ErHa because of the side character stories. I'm not enjoying Thousand Autumns as I thought I would. That's sad to hear. I hope for your sake that it gets better, because I know the disappointment of like being very excited about a book and then it just doesn't quite work the way you had hoped it would. Oh, it's okay. I don't think I'm gonna read Thousand Autumns. But yeah, spoilers for that, maybe for other people's sake, might not be a good idea. I have a mosquito here that keeps on distracting me. So if I randomly like lash out at thin air, that's why. Unexpectedly, Chin Manor was festively adorned with lanterns and banners, the reception area piled high with bridal betrothal gifts, and a massive she character hanging in the main hall. Madame Chen's face was glowing, plagued with no sign of illness whatsoever, and she beamed as she directed servants to pack the betrothal gifts with red silk and ornate decorations. Who was getting married? Who was preparing betrothal gifts? Who was sparing no expense? How very grand! Who was? Liu Shen weaved between the busy crowds, listening to the drone of voices. Madam Chen, congratulations on the engagement of your son to Governor Yao's daughter. When's the engagement feast? Madam Chen is certainly blessed. Young Mrs. Yao is truly the Chen family's lucky star. The betrothal was just... oh, my word. Sorry. The betrothal was just set, and Madam Chen is already looking much better. Well, if that isn't a frickin' slap in the face. Oh, goodness. Your son and young Mistress Yao are as gold and jade, a match made in heaven. I'm so envious. Ha ha ha. I still struggle with how to read laughter. Please be careful of mosquitoes nowadays. A lot of people are getting viruses from mosquitoes. Oh yeah, no, it is what it is. Luckily, we don't have like malaria or anything here, but there's unfortunately not much I can do about it. Otherwise, you guys are gonna see me slapping the air for like 10 minutes straight trying to hit this thing. Your son? Your son? Which son? Who is marrying the daughter of the Yao family? Frantically, Liu Shen roamed the familiar halls and yard, looking for that familiar silhouette amidst the chatter and laughter. She found it. Chen Huan stood before the peonies in the rear hall, his face wan and cheeks sunken. But he was dressed in red, not wedding robes, but Butterfly Town's traditional butterfly-embroidered red robes worn by future son-in-law, who, when he went to the bride's house to propose. And the worst part is you can, like, that description alone tells you that he doesn't want this, but I don't know if Luo Xianxian is going to pick up on that. He was going to propose? All of these lavish gifts, dripping with gold, silver, and pearls, all of them had been prepared by him? By Chen Huan, her husband, for the daughter of the Yao family. Luo Shen found herself recalling when the two of them had been married. There had been nothing, just two people, one heart, and nothing else. That is a beautiful sentence, even though it is very tragic. Okay, sorry, I just wanna... just give me a second. Okay. I do quickly want to take my break. I just noticed it's already 6 o'clock. So we're at the top of page 236. So I think I'm gonna quickly stop here for the 10-minute break, and then we'll be back at 10 past if that's okay. Okay. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I'm back. Oh, goodness. Okay. We are not quite ready for the rest of this because I feel like it's not going to necessarily be less emotional for the rest of the read-along, but it's fine. I tried to do some mosquito hunting while there was the break, but miraculously, as soon as I was able to attempt to murder the mosquito, it disappeared on me. So, and now it's back, which is great. You know, so we're just gonna live with it. It can like set up shop here, it's fine. If I randomly whack my arm in the middle of this, you know why. Okay. Okay, anyway. Let us continue. No, most of... Okay, so we had her reminiscing, or we are currently having her reminiscing about the fact that she did not have any of this luxury that they are currently showing the other women. No master of ceremonies, no bridesmaid or best man, no gifts. The Chen family had not yet found prosperity and had not had so much as a single decent set of jewelry. Chembohon had walked to the tangerine tree in the yard that they had planted together and plucked a delicate blossom to carefully tuck it in her hair. She had asked him, "How do I look?" "Beautiful," he had said. Then he had been silent for a moment, before stroking her hair apologetically. "You deserve better." Luo Shen had smiled, and she said she didn't mind. Chembohon had said to her that when he formally married her in 3 years' time, he would absolutely make it up to her with a grand ceremony, and everyone would be invited. He would pick her up with a big sedan carried by 8 men, adorn her in gold and silver, and the reception would be filled with betrothal gifts. The promise made that year rang in her ears. Here and now, the ceremony was grand, and everyone was invited, but he was marrying someone else. It's fine. Anger and sorrow washed over Luo Shen. She screamed as she tore at the red silks and brocades in the room, but being a ghost, she couldn't physically touch any of them. As if he sensed something, Chembohon looked back, his gaze hollow as he stared blankly at the silks in the room. There was no wind yet, they drifted. And it's so sad as well because I just wish she would notice that he is clearly not willing in this, but I think she is too overwhelmed by her own grief to really notice it. His little sister walked over. There was a white jade hairpin in her hair, and she was mourning for someone in secret. "Dagger, please eat something. You haven't eaten properly for days, and you still have to travel to the governor's residence to propose. At this rate, your body won't hold up. Xiaomei, do you hear someone crying?" Chembohon asked out of the blue. "Huh? No, Dagger, are you?" She gritted her teeth and didn't finish the thought. Chembohon continued to stare at the place where the silks drifted. "How is mother? Is she in a good mood? Has she recovered from her illness?" "Dagger, it's good that she recovered." Chembohon stood there, spacing out for a while, then mumbled to himself, "I've already lost Shen. I can't lose mother too." "Dagger, please go eat." Luo Shen cried, screamed, held her head, kneeled in anguish. Don't go. Don't leave." "All right," said Chembohon. His exhausted figure turned a corner and disappeared. Luo Shen stood there alone in a daze, fat droplets of tears rolling down her cheeks. By chance, the voices of the Chin brothers, who had caused her death, wafted towards her. It was the second and youngest brothers whispering to one another. Mother is overjoyed. Whew! Things are finally falling into place. You don't say! It took half a year of pretending to be sick to finally force out that unlucky pest. How could she not be happy? The youngest brother clicked his tongue. I can't believe she just up and died, though, he exclaimed. We only threw her out. It's not like we wanted to kill her. How stupid was she? Did she not even know how to find help? Who knows? Maybe she was just thin-skinned, like her... I'm not gonna say that word. Loser of a father. It's not our fault she died. Mother might have duped her, but things were difficult for us too. Just think about it. Between the governor's daughter and some peasant girl, only an idiot would choose her. Besides, if we offended young Mistress Yao, things wouldn't end well for us. You're right. That girl was just a dumbass. If she wanted to freeze to death, that's on no one else. These were the words that reached Luo Shinshen's ears. Only in death did she finally understand that being a so-called bringer of misfortune just meant that she was poor and low status, and that she couldn't compare to the governor's honored daughter. Only an idiot would choose the peasant girl. Luo Shinshen finally lost it. She returned to the temple of the ghost mistress, heart filled with hatred and resentment. She had died there, weak and helpless. She returned there now, bitter and stone-hearted. Luo Shinshen had once been so kind and good-natured, but now she called up all the hatred she had felt in her lifetime, and all the wickedness in her character that she had never before let loose. She screamed her throat raw, her eyes red, her soul quivering. I, Luo Shinshen, am willing to give up my soul to become a malicious ghost. I beg the ghost mistress only for vengeance. I want the entire Chim family to die miserably. I want that mother-in-law of mine, who is worse than a beast, to kill her sons with her own hands, all of them. I want Chen Bohuan to come keep me company in hell, to be buried with me. I refuse to accept this. I hate them. I hate them all. Upon the shrine, the clay idol lowered its eyelashes, the corner of its lips curving into a smirk. A voice echoed inside the temple. Your worship has been accepted, and your wish will be fulfilled. Henceforth, you are a malicious ghost. Go forth and slaughter all who have wronged you. Great! Nothing says good people like turning someone good-willed into this. A piercing blood-red light flashed, and after that, Luo Shinshen remembered nothing. But Chu Ning already knew what had happened next. The ghost mistress controlled Luo Shinshen, the malicious ghost, to possess Madame Chen and murder the Chim family one by one. Chen Bohuan had been in the red coffin dug up on the mountain in order to fulfill Luo Shinshen's wish. I want Chen Bohuan to be buried with me. On top of that, the ghost mistress had intentionally placed a coffin where Chen Bohuan and his new wife were going to bury their house, as both curse and vengeance. As for the scent inside Chen Bohuan's coffin, it was that of the 100 butterfly fragrance that had been on Luo Shinshen's body when she died. The coffin had been filled with both strong resentful energy and that heavy fragrance, because Luo Shinshen's soul had been asleep inside with Chen Bohuan. Luo Shinshen had no family left. When such a person died, they were customarily cremated rather than buried. Thus, she no longer had a body, and could only take on her form inside the ghost mistress's coffin. When Chuaning had split open the coffin with a whip, Luo Xinshian's soul had lost its shelter and scattered, temporarily unable to reconstitute. That was the reason why the coffin's resentful energy had been strong when closed, but faint once open. Ah. Now everything makes sense. Oh, goodness, okay. Chuaning pondered for a moment before figuring it out. Oh, sorry, no. Still, in the illusionary realm, why had the corpses been matched in pairs except for Chen Bo-huan, who was matched with a paper ghost bride? Now we know. Chuaning pondered for a moment before figuring it out. The ghost mistress wouldn't break its own promise. Thus, that ghost bride had been meant to be Luo Xinshian's corporal body, or in other words, a medium, since only Luo Xinshian could be buried together with Chen Bo-huan. Everything had become clear. Chuaning looked at the helpless girl in the barrier's illusion. He wanted to say something, but didn't know what. The Yuheng elder really was bad with words. Everything he said came out stiff. So the silence stretched on, and he ended up saying nothing at all. The girl stood in the endless darkness, those soft round eyes of hers open wide. Chuaning looked at her eyes, and he suddenly didn't have the heart to bear it anymore. He was unable to withstand another glance, and wanted to leave. He was just about to open his eyes, to leave the restoration barrier, when the girl spoke. Yonluo Guga, there is something I want to tell you. Hmm? The girl lowered her head and started crying into her hands. She softly said, Yonluo Guga, I don't know what I did afterwards, but I really don't want to get my husband killed. I don't want to be a malicious ghost. Really. I didn't steal the chandrines. I really am Chen Bo-huan's wife, and my whole life I really truly never wanted to harm anyone. I really didn't want to hurt anyone. Please, I beg you, please believe me. Her wavering voice was broken with sobs. I didn't lie. I didn't lie. Why is it that all my life hardly anyone ever believed me? She sobbed miserably. Chuaning's voice rang out in the darkness. He didn't say much, but it was without hesitation. Luo Xinshian's small body jolted. I believe you, said Chuaning. That's it. I will forever love Chuaning. No one can convince me otherwise. He is the best character. Luo Xinshian tried to wipe away her tears, but couldn't stop crying. In the end, she covered her tear-streaked face with her hands and bowed deeply towards the person in the darkness, who she couldn't see. Chuaning opened his eyes. He said nothing for a long while. Time passed differently inside the barrier than it did in reality. He had been within it for a long time, but it had been a mere instant to those on the outside. Moran hadn't yet arrived, and the remaining members of the Chim family were watching him apprehensively. Chuaning suddenly put away the willow vine. I will voice your grievances, he said to Madame Chen. You can sleep now. Madame Chen stared blankly at him with blood-red eyes, then collapsed to the ground with a thud, unconscious. Chuaning lifted his head again, his gaze sweeping across Landlord Chen's face, then landing on the youngest son. I will ask one last time. His voice was flat and cold, and he spoke slowly, clearly enunciating every word. You really don't know whose voice that was? I really hope he seeks justice for her now. I mean, I think he is gonna, even if it's not like in a very physical way. This is tough. This is really a little bit of a tough read. Because on the one hand, I just kind of wish that there wasn't the misunderstanding between her and her husband. Like, it feels almost unfair that everyone else around them was so greedy and like self-involved, and the two of them had to suffer, and there was never, even after their death, there was no reconciliation, there was no explanation of what had happened, so the two of them could be at peace together. Okay, let me just... Chapter 23. The Venerable One couldn't stop him. Oh! Who couldn't be stopped? The youngest son quivered uncontrollably, both legs shaking as he looked up at his father. Landlord Chen's... Thank you, sir. Landlord Chen's eyes darted left and right. After a while, he insisted, I don't know. I don't recognize it. Chuaning's face was as cold as frost. His voice was low as he said, Liar. Chuaning had a severe appearance to begin with. Now, with his eyebrows lowered and his furious aura, he looked even more murderous, even more frightening than a malicious ghost. Landlord Chen unconsciously took 2 steps back. Chuaning abruptly struck the ground with Tianwen, and sparks danced from the vine as leaves flew into the air. Landlord Chen promptly fell on his ass. The image is bringing me way too much joy. Was 100 butterfly fragrance really devised by your family? Was your eldest son's marriage really his first? Does Luo Xianxian ring a bell? Just how shameless are you at this ripe old age? Landlord Chen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but he couldn't ultimately manage a single word, and his face turned from ashen to scarlet. The young daughter of the Chen family, who had been cowering off to the side this whole time, heard the name Luo Xianxian and immediately started crying. She stumbled over to kneel before her mother, shaking that unconscious body. Luo Jie, was that you? I know you were wronged, and that you can't accept it, but I beg of you, if only for me, please spare my family. Luo Jie. Chu Wanning leaned over, Tianwen glowing gold in his hand, and used it to its hilt to lift Landlord Chen's face. That's a power move if I ever saw one, or read one. He was a germaphobe, and had no inclination whatsoever to touch those he already found disgusting. A single graze would give him goosebumps. That's interesting. I'm gonna remember that whenever he interacts with Moran. Do you really think I can't tell when someone's lying to me? Chuaning asked pitilessly. He stared into Landlord Chen's face as his own was reflected in those frightened eyes. It was indeed an unlikable face, cold and harsh, like a blade covered in frost. That sounds beautiful to me, but what do I know? And what of it? Yu Heng of the night sky had no need of affection from other people. Dao Zhang, Sisheng Peak sent you, and I'm the client. How could you pry into my private business like this? Fine. I'll get out of your business then, said Chuaning. You can wait to die. Wait. You can't. I can't. Danger flickered in Chuaning's narrowed eyes. I can't what? You. If someone like you were a disciple of my sect, Chuaning said as he stroked Tianwen, I'd whip you bloody and snap your bones right here. Well, that's a threat. At this, Landlord Chen finally gave up and tried to play dumb. The sight of Chuaning's vicious demeanor, without a hint of compassion one would expect from a cultivator, made his legs begin to shake violently. He knelt down, throwing all self-respect out of the window as he wailed, Zhang, we had no choice. Sure. We couldn't afford to offend the governor's daughter. We were so worried that we could hardly eat Zhang. While caterwauling, he reached out to cling to Chuaning's thighs. I can't figure out if that's supposed to be literally or figuratively, because the one makes sense and the other one is just hilarious to imagine. Chuaning, okay, no, he literally meant okay, because it was about to say his germophobia would be about to kick in. Chuaning's germophobia fled. As Landlord Chen was about to touch him, he brought the willow vine down without a second thought, exclaiming in disgust, Don't touch me. Ah! The back of Landlord Chen's hand was lashed by Tianwen, and even though there was no spiritual energy behind the strike, he howled in pain. Unbelievable! The man shouted. A Shen Peak cultivator. Did I just say pick? Peak cultivator would strike the common folk? You! When Moran, supporting the two invalids, stepped into the Chen family manor, the sight that greeted him was that of Landlord Chen crying snottily where he knelt on the ground, pointing at Chuaning with a shaky finger as he yelled, Which other sect does that? You certain people took the fee, and not only did you not protect the client, you attack him instead. It's beyond shameless. I'm gonna tell everyone. I'll announce it to the world. I'll make sure everyone knows about your sect's attitude. I'll destroy your sect's reputation and make you never get paid another copper. So what if you have money? Chuaning snarled. Does money allow you to flip right and wrong? To repay kindness with cruelty? Does money let you do whatever you want and break all your promises? Chuaning, I love you so much. It's not like we killed that Luo Shen. The Chen family's youngest son spoke up timidly from the side. We just knocked her around a bit and chased her out. Can we just... She's the one who didn't want to live. It's not our fault. She didn't want to look for shelter from the snow. Oh yeah, 'cause her going all the way to the temple isn't her looking for shelter, right? My nose is itching right now. I'm gonna blame my annoyance. Oh, word. It's not our fault she didn't look for shelter from the snow. Can you blame us for that? We didn't kill anyone. You can't just point fingers as you please just because you're some mighty cultivator. His words were extremely crafty. Technically, the Chins hadn't broken any laws. Even if Chuaning were to drag them to court, at most the official might rebuke them for being heartless and dishonest, but none of them would be convicted of anything. Are you trying to claim that because you didn't kill someone with your own hands, you're not responsible for their deaths? How convenient for you. Chuaning's hand, clenched around the willow vine, shook with anger. Landlord Chen, that old weasel, had already picked up his wits from where they had scattered by the initial scare. That's quite a nice sentence. I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry. He had been afraid that Chuaning would ditch them without taking care of the ghost, but when he thought about it again, that barbarous Zhang had still been sent by Shizun as the foremost sect of the lower cultivation realm. Since they'd collected the fee, they would definitely finish the job. That was common knowledge. Once he came to the realization, he stopped being quite so afraid. I mean, he can technically finish the job and murder you as well. That's like that. There is the option for that. He can get rid of the ghost and also get rid of you. That does not extend. Like, his contract with you does not protect you from that. Technically. We do like technical here. He held on to his own hoof? I've never heard that expression. Which had sustained a tiny cut, all tears and snot as he cried, "Cleaned up? Us Chins, we've never done anything heinous. Not murder and not arson." Huh? Where, did I miss something? Okay, I feel like something's missing here, but I'm gonna read it as is. He held on. Yeah, no, it is. Okay. He held on to his own hoof, which had sustained a tiny cut, all tears and snot as he cried, "Cleaned up? Us Chins, we've never done anything heinous. Not murder and not arson. If Luo Xianxian didn't want to live, how was that any of our fault? If you don't properly exorcise this ghost today, I'll go to Shizun Peak right away and file a complaint about you. Who does things like this? If you take someone's money, you have to take care of their problem. How do you not understand something that basic? And you!" Before he'd even finished, Chuaning took out his own money pouch and threw it at the ground before him, never once blinking. "Your payment to the sect, returned in full. As for complaining, feel free." Tianwen glowed brightly, willow leaves sharp as knives. Caught off guard, Landlord Chen yelped and squealed, covering his head and scurrying about like a rat. In his frenzy, he even dragged his own daughter in front of him to block the lashes. This man. I mean, because at first I thought, okay, maybe the wife is worse than the husband, but no, they're equally as bad as each other. Luckily, Chuaning was a practiced hand at whipping people, and Tianwen was one with his mind. The willow vine snapped back to avoid hitting the Chen daughter before circling around and heading directly for Landlord Chen's face. In a flash, there was a loud shriek and a spray of blood. Oof! Landlord Chen hadn't expected Chuaning to be so completely unfazed by his posturing, and his air of arrogance instantly melted into a puddle of mud, leaving him scared witless as he fled and shrieked, "Wait, wait, wait! Hold the whip! Hold the whip! Ah, Daozhang, spare me! I was just talking nonsense, just nonsense. Please, I'm begging you. I'm getting on in the years. I can't take this. Daozhang, have mercy. It was our fault. It was our fault." Again, I love Chuaning. But also, to hell with this man for only now saying it because he realizes that he doesn't have power over Chuaning. I don't for a second believe he's at all remorseful. Chuaning wasn't even listening to him. His brain was brimming with anger, and his phoenix eyes grimly narrowed as Tianwen danced in the air. Landlord Shen rolled around on the ground in pain, crying messily. Moran stood at the gate, stunned. He had never seen Chuaning whip a commoner with Tianwen before, and so ruthlessly too. It was as if he was whipping a beast. The willow vine moved so fast it was barely visible. Ooh, I shouldn't be enjoying this. This kind of behavior was unheard of. Beating up the client, whether in the upper or lower cultivation realm, would without a doubt destroy a cultivator's reputation for good. No matter how bad Chuaning's temper was, or how much he let his heart rule his head, how could he have gone so far as to commit such a huge blunder? This was way more serious than Moran's thieving and debauchery. Shimei's face was pale from shock. He pulled at Moran in a panic. Hurry, and stop Shizun! Moran handed the still unconscious Madame Chen Yao, that was young Mistress Yao, over to Shimei and stepped forward to grab Chuaning's wrist. Shizun, what are you doing? He asked, alarmed and apprehensive. Chuaning was in a terrible mood, and his brow furrowed. Let go, he bellowed. Shizun, this is against the rules. As if I need you to tell me. Which of Sishing Peak's 750 rules do I not know better than you? Let go. Moran raised his voice. Then why aren't you stopping? Chuaning didn't Chuaning didn't feel like wasting his breath. He abruptly ripped his hand away instead, and another lash landed ruthlessly on Landlord Chen. Shizun! Chuaning growled, eyes frosty. Get lost. Landlord Chen saw that Moran looked handsome and amiable. My dude, if you have, that is the worst character reading you probably would ever do in your life. He definitely had to be a good person. Again, really bad judge of character. He hurriedly crawled over to cower behind Moran and tugged at the hem of his clothing. Zhang, please talk to your Shizun. My old bones, even if I was wrong, my old bones can't take this kind of beating. But contrary to his expectations, when Moran turned around and saw his snot and tear-covered face, he felt not pity, but disgust. He moved quickly away with a and muttered in disdain, Don't touch me. I know he wasn't meaning to throw shade, but it kind of still feels as if shade was thrown. Landlord Chen saw that this man could not be relied upon. His gaze moved to Shimei, who was helping Madame Chen Yao into a chair not too far away. Holding on to his last bit of hope, he crawled toward Shimei, crying and yowling. Zhang, please show some kindness. Show some mercy. I know I was wrong. It was my bad, all my bad. Please, I beg you, please talk to your Shizun. I was wrong and I admit my guilt. I will do whatever you say. Just please don't hit me anymore. I'm so old. My body can't bear it. Can't bear it. Can you stop talking, please? I'm begging you. He cried pitifully, genuinely begging for his life as he crawled to Shimei's side and tugged at his clothing. Shimei was filled with pity and turned to implore Chuaning. Shizun, since the old man already knows he's in the wrong, please show some mercy and spare. Out of my way, Chuaning cut in. Shimei fell silent. Did you not hear me? Chuaning said severely. Shimei shuddered in fear and moved out of the way. Tianwen ripped through the air with a whoosh and headed directly for Landor-chan, who was covering his head with both arms, and let out a frightened cry. The sound was simply too pitiful. Shimei couldn't help but step back in front of him to block the hit. The lash landed with a resounding crack. Shimei had moved too fast. Damn it! Now Moran's gonna hate Chuaning again, and that's not fair because of, like, oh, damn it! Chuaning tried to pull back, but it was too late. Droplets of blood flew. In his weakened state, the strike sent Shimei straight to his knees. He covered his delicate cheek, but he couldn't stop the blood that trickled out from between his fingers. I hate this so much. Oh, okay, that's the end of the chapter. Let's quickly move on to the next one, because there's still 10-ish minutes left, I think. Yeah, and I need to get past this freaking bit where Moran is probably going to be angry. Chapter 24, This Venerable One declares a Cold War. Fantastic. For a moment, everyone was silent. The only sound was Landor-chan's sobs. Shimei's head was lowered, his hand covering his cheek, but when he looked up at Chuaning, his gaze was earnest and sincere. Shizun, please stop this. If you keep going, it'll be Shishin Peak that bears the blame. Moran's soul was about to fly out of his mouth. He might have been a reprobate, but he was a reprobate who was utterly devoted to Shimei. In this reborn life, he had sworn to himself to treat Shimei carefully and to protect him well. Yet it had only been a couple of days, and already Shimei had been injured and lashed. How could this be? He couldn't even be bothered to settle the score with Chuaning at present. Instead, he hurried to Shimei's side to check the wound on his cheek. I'm okay, Shimei said softly. Let me see anyway. It's really nothing. Shimei tried to resist, but Moran began to pull away the hand covering his wound. His pupils instantly contracted. It was a deep gash, raw and bloody, stretching all the way to his neck. Shimei's blood still ran from it. This is not fair. I have so many thoughts and I just can't, like, formulate any of them because I'm too stressed. Okay. Moran saw red. He bit his lip and glared for a long time before whipping around to yell at Chuaning. Are you quite done yet? Chuaning, face dour, was silent. He did not apologize or approach, only stood there rooted to the same spot, holding Tianwen. Though it remained dormant, no spiritual energy channeled into it. Moran felt like there was countless frenzied demons. What the hell was that word? Demons in his chest, who could tolerate seeing their beloved person, who had died once in a past life, suffering time and again like this. He and Chuaning stared each other down, neither backing down, neither giving in. Moran's eyes began to grow bloodshot. He'd hated Chuaning for so many years that the hatred had seeped all the way into the marrow of his bones. Why was this person always in his way? Moran, we'll get into it another day, okay? I'll let you know in a bit. Back when Moran had first joined the sect, he had done something wrong and nearly been whipped to death by Chuaning. Later, when Shimei had been badly injured, even though he was one of only 3 disciples Chuaning had ever taken in his life, Chuaning had merely stood by without lifting a finger. Later still, after Shimei's death, after Sishun Peak had been destroyed, Mo Wei had become the sole overlord of the cultivation world, and every person under the sun grovelled before him. Only Chuaning had stood against him. He had done so at every turn, getting in his way left and right, stabbing him in the conscience, a constant reminder that no matter how mighty an emperor Ta Xianjun became, underneath it all he was just a lunatic who'd been abandoned by all those closest to him. Chuaning, Chuaning. In life and death, it was always him. Dude, that sounds like a love confession. I don't know if you hear yourself. The 2 of them were still dressed in matching wedding robes. Oh, I forgot that little detail. Red and red, face to face. But it was as if the space between them was split by a gaping chasm. Finally, Chuaning put Tianwen away. Lando Chen let out a massive sigh of relief and knelt in front of Shimei, kowtowing non-stop. So kind, so kind. Xianjun is truly a living Buddha, truly our savior. Thank you for saving my entire family, Xianjun. Thank you, Xianjun. Thank you, Xianjun. Oh my word, can this man just stop, please? And also, I love that you're like, thank you for saving my entire family, when in fact Shimei saved you only, and most of your family is dead because of you, indirectly, but still. Well, you and your wife. It always ended like this. Chuaning would be the one to take care of evil spirits, but he would also be the one who dealt out vicious lashes thereafter. Chuaning did what he was supposed to, but also what he wasn't supposed to, and after everything, someone else would be the compassionate savior, and he is the villain. It had always been this way. This is killing me. I hate this so much. I feel so bad for Chuaning. Chuaning knew that he was ill-tempered, so he was resigned to this. He didn't regret it either. Of course he felt bad about having accidentally struck his own disciple, but he had a thin face and couldn't bring himself to go up and say some warm, gentle words. Okay, you do need to work on that though. Instead, he walked away and went to stand before the young daughter of the Chen family. The little girl looked at him and subconsciously stepped back in fear, quivering. Of the entire Chen family, she was the only one with any kindness. Chuaning softened his tone as he spoke. Your mother suffered ghost possession, and her lifespan has been reduced by at least 20 years. Ooh, if that isn't an interesting punishment. If she doesn't repent and continues being immoral, she will be plagued by negative energy and die even sooner. When she wakes, tell her to handcraft a memorial tablet for Miss Luo using red peachwood, and to clearly acknowledge her status from there on. Liu Shenqian was Chamber Huan's properly wedded wife. I love that. Yes. Her dying wish. What? To fulfill her dying wish, the fact that your family has kept this hidden for years must also be made public. Yes. Yes. He paused, then handed her a scripture book. Additionally, your whole family must kneel and recite the incantation of deliverance 3 times a day to help Miss Luo's soul find peace and purge the spirits haunting your family. This must be done for 10 years without stop, or Miss Luo will return for vengeance. I don't know if he's telling the truth. I'm here for the punishment, but somehow I'm struggling to believe that that's genuinely, like, necessary. Yes, the little girl's voice shook. Thank you, Zhang. Chuaning turned to glare at Landlord Chen and his son, gaze sharp as a snow-covered dagger. When Madame Chen Yao awakens, the two of you must tell her everything and let her make her own decision. If you try to hide anything at all, I'll rip out both your tongues. These two were no more than posturing cowards who dared not put up any resistance now that things had come to this point. They prostrated themselves on the ground, swearing up and down to follow his every instruction. As for the 100 butterfly fragrance, it was created by Miss Luo alone, but you shamelessly claimed it as your own formula. You know what you have done. I will waste no more breath on you. Chuaning shook out his sleeves and made to leave. We'll definitely go make corrections to our store's claims and clarify that this fragrance was devised by Mr. Luo. Oh, I misread it. I misread it as Miss Luo instead of Mr. Luo. After everything was taken care of, Chuaning instructed Moran to take Madame Chen Yao inside so as to draw out the poison within her. Although Moran held hate in his heart, he knew well that in his youth he had been more respectful than defiant towards his Shizun, so he didn't protest. He only squeezed Shimei's hand and whispered, "Go take care of your face and stop the bleeding. I'll take her inside." Okay, I think, what's the time? Okay, I'm gonna stop it here for tonight. We are gonna be continuing tomorrow. And I'm kind of excited because I think a decent amount of the sadness should be past now for at least like a chapter or two, which would be good for me. But yeah, we're on page 255. So let me quickly see. Janae, do you enjoy the ErHa manhwa or book more? Not sure. The fact that Chuaning is injured with a torn shoulder right now and all Moran can see is Shimei's injury makes my blood boil. Yes, I forgot this poor man was so injured because he doesn't like really think about it because he's too enraged himself. Like Chuaning himself is too enraged on Luo Shenxian's behalf to really be thinking about his injury. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of frustration that I'm gonna be feeling, but I'm gonna give Moran a little bit of grace because of the past experiences. I can see, like, it's very clear how his past experience with Chuaning is clouding his view of Chuaning now, and I'm hoping that we'll get to slowly see that transform as he starts to understand Chuaning more and more, because I don't think he's ever tried to really understand Chuaning before. But yeah, with regards to whether I like the book or the manhwa more, that's very difficult because what I enjoy about the book is the fact that we get more detail about what is going on in their heads, the general atmosphere between them is stronger in my opinion than it is in the manhwa, but I absolutely adore the art from the manhwa so much that I wish I could have both. Like, that's why, for example, I ordered the manhwa for Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, even though I do have the novel already, because like the story just feels so much more complete when you have both options. So like, even though I think if I had to choose between one or the other, I would choose the book because there's more detail to it. I like that we have both, so it just paints a better picture. So yeah, that's why, like, even if I love a book, I would also love to see a well-adapted movie of it, because it's nice to see it done in different formats and see how things would be interpreted, how it would be acted out, what kind of life actors can bring to the characters that you might not have necessarily picked up on the first time you read something. So I just enjoy having multiple versions of a story that I enjoy, basically. Very, I'm very eloquent, clearly. So yeah, okay. That is the end of today's live. As I mentioned, the live for tomorrow is going to be an hour earlier than this one was, and if I don't get totally sidetracked, the plan is to put it up in a few minutes after I fix the thumbnail for today's read along, so that it reflects what we just experienced with the actual story. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. 再见. Oh, and also I'm just gonna wait until it's clear that I finish speaking on my side, because last time YouTube acted up and we don't want a repeat of that where I accidentally end the live early. So